So welcome everyone. My name is Paul Holden and I'm the CEO and President of the Burnaby Board of Trade. Before we start, I'd like to take a moment to recognise that the offices of the Burnaby Board of Trade are on the ancestral and unceded homelands of the Hunkaminam and Skohomish speaking peoples, and we extend our appreciation for the opportunity to hold a meeting on this territory. I joined the Burnaby Board of Trade about 13 years ago, and we'd just about started then our journey on becoming very much the leading Chamber of Commerce or Board of Trade in the area of environmental issues. And over the next few years, we really did ramp up the work that we were doing to help businesses understand what they can do to improve their sustainable journey. We launched a number of programs and initiatives over the years and managed to engage hundreds and hundreds of Burnaby businesses in understanding what they can do to play their part in improving sustainability and protecting us all against everything that we know is happening with regards to climate change. Over the years, a number of organisations have joined us in this journey and have joined us in supporting the work that we do. And I'd like to recognise some of our partners now. At the platinum level, we have Parkland Corporation. At the gold level, we have ABC Recycling, Alexander College, BCIT School of Business and Media, Electronic Arts, Hemlock Printers, and Simon Fraser University. And I'd like to thank those organisations for really focusing on supporting the specific work we're doing in the area of sustainability. But I'd also like to thank, as always, our annual partners, who are the organisations who stand out as top corporate citizens in the business community in Burnaby. And they support our work throughout the year with a whole host of initiatives and programs and other activities. And I think you can see their logos on the screen now. At this point, I'm going to be handing over now to my colleague Ayelet, who's going to be introducing our speakers and letting you know what the format for today's event is. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And from me, thank you very much to the speakers as well for taking your time today to share your journeys with our members. Thank you very much, and over to you, Ayelet.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We are so pleased to be joined by 5 fantastic local businesses to discuss sustainability and innovation. During today's event, you will hear 5 rapid-fire presentation segments where speakers will present interesting and engaging 5-minute talks on all things sustainability. As we go through today's presentations, if you have questions, please enter those in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screens, and we'll try to save a few minutes at the end of all 5 speakers to answer those. So to kick off today's event, I'm happy to introduce Ben Patton. Ben is the founder and CEO of TreeCycle Canada. TreeCycle manages wood waste for their strategic partners and members of the community, and have recycled over 50 tons of wood waste and reused 35 tons in projects across the Lower Mainland. Their goal is to change the way society recycles wood waste and, in turn, the way we view our resources. So, Ben, over to you.
Let me just share the screen here. Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me? Okay, perfect. And then, yes, so that information, funny enough, is goes to show that we have not updated the website in a while, because while through our deconstructing of urban trees, we've actually recycled over 250 tons, so that's 250,000 kilos of wood. And so we've definitely bumped up our numbers and been able to really amplify our impact here for sequestering stored carbon. So yes, why do we waste materials if they're resources? We really don't have better solutions. One of the most common phrases that we hear is we just don't have the solutions or the opportunities to actually recover this wood, and we're here to tell you that we definitely do. So one of the things we do is we prioritize 5 of the zero waste guiding principles for Metro Vancouver: highest and best use, closed loop systems, close to source processes, materials and resources, and source separation. So the key things about this is highest and best use. Don't cut down a very large log and cut it into small little 2x4s. If you can use it as a beam, we can cut that down further into 2x4s later. So that's highest and best use. Closed loop is we try to keep it within the same business or the same, effectively the same operational site. So if a tree is coming out of a development, let's put it back into the building. So this is source separation, and we're stopping waste at the source. One of the key things being these logs are incredibly large. Because of that, they hold an incredible amount of stored carbon. So by letting that go to firewood, which is the status quo during tree removals in urban forest, that actually just gets burned away, and we're literally, burning away the life of the tree. So that's instead we look towards putting it as building materials, remanufacturing into building materials for our built environment. Just as you can see, that's a beautiful table there, but this is where the wood comes from. So that in a tribute to Burnaby, the Burnaby General Hospital was having trees removed. VI Tree decided to call us out in order for this expansion, or the wing expansion of the hospital, to happen. They needed to clear this urban forest. It's a requirement. And because of that, all the trees were going to be wasted. And VI Tree decided to call us out and partnered with them to recover all of these logs that you see here. We were only able to actually recover about a fifth of the overall volume, and we were still a relatively young business at the time, but it goes to show the volume of waste when there's 5 large bins like that being loaded full of high-value timber. So instead of firewood, it becomes this. It's fairly straightforward. It's dimensional lumbers, it's building materials, it's, like charcuterie boards, tabletops, shelves, whatever you can imagine, it can arguably be built into it. So this is an example of specific and abstract use. We took the top of an actual cedar tree and sent that out on a truck. We sent that out to a playground at the Malcolm Knapp Research Forest. So a beautiful opportunity for something that doesn't have a ton of high value, but still specific reuse. And then, as you can see, we've been cutting the rest of that tree down and producing it into millable sized beams and logs. So that's where it's going to get remanufactured into things like this. So as you can see, there's plenty of different products we can make from this, and that's the circular economy in action. So this is an example of on-site reuse. City of Richmond called us out to be able to deconstruct this tree because the lawn bowling club is actually being deconstructed itself. So the new building that's going to go back, we're going to be able to furnish that out with a ton of this giant sequoia tree, literally giant sequoia. This is what it ends up looking like in the future. Mind you, the logs are drying at the moment, but this is what it'll look like. It's stunning wood, and we shouldn't let this go to waste. So this is an example, and one of my last, of environmental reuse. So this is with the North Shore Stream Keepers. I happen to be a director over there. And by taking logs from the urban environment and actually building them into stream rehabilitation, we can actually protect salmonid species and trout and all of the microfauna that actually live in our rivers. So that's pretty much it. It was a very flash forward motion. I'm glad we didn't hear the chainsaw ripping up behind us, but we do have another large tree coming down about 50 feet away from my house as I sit. Our neighbor retained us, and it's just another example of how much wood can come out of the urban forest. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. That was fast, but very informative. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Please stick and ask questions at the end if you have any questions about anything that Ben does and his company. Next, we have Clea Wells. Clea is the retail program manager at FoodMesh. FoodMesh helps organizations waste less and feed more with their professional food recovery services, which divert the maximum volume of unusable food away from waste streams and onto the plates of people who need it. Leah, please take it over.
All right, thanks very much. Let me just share my screen here. Give me one sec. All right, you should all be able to see that now.
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. All right. Okay, so reducing food waste in Metro Vancouver. So hello, and thank you for inviting us to be a part of this important discussion. I'm Clea, and I work as a program manager with FoodMesh. All right, so for those who don't know us, I'll provide a quick introduction. So we're a Vancouver-based startup dedicated to helping food businesses waste less and feed more. So how we do that is by connecting businesses that have food they can no longer sell to a network of organizations to put that food to its highest end use. And I'm sure you're already aware, but there are many reasons that food might be deemed unsaleable and sent to waste streams as a result. For example, maybe it's close to its best before date. It could have aesthetic imperfections. It could be damaged. It may have errors on its packaging, or it could be overstocked. So most of the time, the food is still perfectly edible. It just can't be sold. So unfortunately, when food ends up in landfill, it creates greenhouse gas emissions, causing damage to the environment. So let's take a closer look at the problem of food waste. If you can believe it, more than half of the food grown and made in this country is going to waste. 32% of that food could be rescued, but most often it isn't. So this wasting of edible food is happening when 1 in 7 families are food insecure. And no doubt that number is rising with inflation and the increasing cost of living. As you may be aware, food waste is also hurting our planet. When discarded food ends up in landfill, it creates methane, a greenhouse gas that is at least 28 times more potent than CO2. And 8% of all global greenhouse gas emissions each year are due to food waste. All right, so lost and wasted food globally is actually responsible for 4 times the amount of greenhouse gas emissions of the entire aviation industry. So that's just another perspective. And to put this another way, if food waste were measured as a country, it would be the 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions in the world, after China and the US. In case you're wondering, this is where in the supply chain that food waste is happening. So the majority is wasted before you or I even see the food, for example, in manufacturing and processing. FoodMesh focuses on food waste at the retail level, where 12% of the waste is occurring. You'll see there that 21% is happening by consumers. So this is a problem we do have the power to fix, both at work and in our homes. And here you'll see some of the causes of food waste, from labeling errors to cosmetic imperfections. So what is FoodMesh doing about this problem? One of our services is an online B2B marketplace. This is for food businesses that have large quantities of surplus food on an ad hoc basis. When you join the marketplace, you get connected to a network of FoodMesh verified organizations to take that food and put it to good use. So if you want to register your interest, feel free to visit our website, foodmesh.ca. Our second offering is our managed food diversion service. It's for any food business which has a regular supply of surplus food. So as mentioned, about 12% of all lost and wasted food in Canada occurs at the retail level. Our program helps retailers ensure that none of their unsold food ends up in landfill. And these are some of the brands that we're currently working with across Canada. Once again, if you're interested, please head online to our website. And separate to these programs, we're working with Metro Vancouver as well to help build a food recovery network in the region. So that means we're trying to help raise awareness of food recovery in the area and increase the number of businesses that are diverting their unsold food away from waste streams. This could be through our programs or through the many other outstanding service providers that are operating locally, such as food charities. We're trying to help generate conversations about food waste and how it can be prevented, as well as help people think differently about recovered food. So we're particularly excited to be a part of this conversation today. And we're inviting organizations into this network, whether it's businesses, charities, farmers, or other service providers. We'll help create connections between them and maximize the surplus food being rescued and redistributed in the region. And finally, if you're interested in being a part of our network to receive donations through our programs, you can also sign up on our website. So to learn more about any of these services, please feel free to visit us online or contact us at engage@foodmesh.ca. So thank you for inviting us to speak, and I look forward to seeing the other presentations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's a great resource, and I'm sure there's going to be some questions and interest at the end. So please put those questions in the Q&A, and Clea can answer them later on. Next, we have Hamish Kamisa. I hope I said that correctly. Hamish is the founder and creative lead of Sparx Publishing Group. Sparx Publishing Group is a digital content agency born out of simple but powerful idea that great content brings people together. Their mission is to create content to make the world better in both big and small ways, from the projects they work on to the community initiatives they participate in. Hamish, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here. I'll just share my screen. Okay, great. Just want to check that everyone can see that. Perfect.
Yes, we can see it.
All right, so thanks for the introduction. My name is Hamish Kamisa. I'm the president and founder of Sparx Publishing Group. We're a digital marketing agency geared towards making the world better through marketing. We try and accelerate awareness and adoption of things that are better for the world, and that's certainly the role that marketing can help play. And what I wanted to spend some time today talking about is sustainability and marketing and how the two intersect. So I'll dive right in, and I'm probably going to look to the timekeepers to make sure I stay on track, because I could certainly go on. I want to start first with an acknowledgement. We are located across the Lower Mainland. We were headquartered in downtown, but then, post-COVID, everybody went to remote, and that's where we are now. But we typically work and play on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. And today, I'm actually in Chicago, so I'm joining from the traditional unceded homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Odawa, the Potawatomi nations, and this land was also home to the Miami, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Sac, and Fox peoples as well. So we started with a question: can marketing make the world better? At first, that seemed like an audacious question to ask, and I'm happy to report that even at a conference like Circularity 24, where I find myself today, the answer is a resounding yes, and more folks are coming on stream. But marketing is still a big challenge for even the biggest of brands. So small business or big business, everyone is up against this wall of understanding how to connect what they do to the long-term well-being of all, which is by definition, or some people's definition, of what sustainability really means. And it really comes down to how you're communicating your place in the world and your relationship to how you're making the world better for everyone. How marketing can help sustainability. The 3 points that I think are probably most salient to bring up here are in terms of accelerating adoption and awareness of things that are typically what we would consider to be better for the world. And that's sort of a loaded statement. So we like to frame that through the UN sustainability goals. So there's 17 goals there that track what some of the global consensus on things that can advance a more sustainable world for all. Marketing can also help by stopping to promote things that are not better for the world. And that's something that might be a call to the folks who are doing the work to be more sensitive about and how they do their work. And certainly it calls for what might be a rethink on marketing's role, or coming back to marketing's original role in business. For the last 20 to 40 years, it's actually drifted into an extension of sales, but marketing at its core, and this is something that Dr. Victoria Hirth, who is a leading expert in purpose-driven organizations, framed as the value generation nerve center. So marketing really should have a critical role in helping to grow any business, but in a sustainable fashion. It's really positioning that business in terms of its role in contributing to the greater well-being of people and planet. So I wanted to, I know I can drift long, but marketing at its heart can be summarized by 2 questions. If you take away anything from this presentation, remember this. This is 85 to 95% of all of the marketing work that we do comes back to this. So just ask yourself, who is this for and what does it do? And if you can answer those 2 questions clearly, you're on the right track. And this is not coming from me. This is from a well-recognized expert, Seth Godin, in marketing. And what you can do by doing that is invest considerable time and effort into finding who your ideal customers are. Don't get sidetracked into thinking there's just one. Make sure you segment. Understand that sometimes sustainability isn't what brings people to you, but you could still advance the mission, even though people might have different motivations to coming to your product or service. And try and be more inclusive and representative in your imagery. Try and be conscientious of how you're showing up and what people in the real world might look at your work and say if they can see themselves in it. A really important component to marketing in the future going forward is really about community. And if you have the opportunity to read, a couple of books, one would be by Marty Neumeier, great author, but really understanding that people want to belong and they want to be seen. And I think they do that now through the products and services that they buy, including things that would be more sustainable. And I want to maybe come to the mindset of the people that form this community. And it's really people who don't believe in a throwaway culture. So this has, what we see even in this conference today and what the world is tracking towards is increased durability and longevity of items. And that just means spending more time and effort from a marketing standpoint, cultivating and building community and relationships. So that's something, if you're not thinking about now, would be a great idea to get going on. And another really important theme from a marketing standpoint is the opportunity, and really about reimagining everything, literally everything that we make today. So this is a generational opportunity, a call to action from Paul Hawken, who's the founder of Project Drawdown. That's really some great work to talk about living within the planetary boundaries. From a marketing standpoint, what that means is whatever you're doing, it has to be better. It can't just be good for the environment. It genuinely has to show up in a way that's better in all aspects of the customer experience. So from a marketer standpoint, emphasize what makes you distinct. Try and think about the friction points and how your customers do business with you, and really try and make your endpoint customer delight and not some transactional endpoint, and focusing on the sale. One interesting example of a local company called Solary Cork. They make shoes, footwear. Some of the labeling that's going to go on their product is talking about their carbon footprint, and literally their carbon footprint. So that's something that you'll see more and more of. Unilever is committed to getting all 70,000 of their products with a similar kind of label. This thing is coming, and so for your marketing communications, just make sure that you reflect on what it is that you're doing in your supply chain, communicating that effectively, and communicating what happens to your product at the end of its life cycle. And the hint is that you shouldn't be throwing it in the garbage as the default. You should really be thinking about how it's going to be taken back into your production line or into your service offering. That's it for me. If you want to reach out, you can find us at sparxpg.com. And we also publish a magazine because we are fervent believers in walking our talk, called Make the World Better Magazine. Our latest issue is on the well-being economy, and would encourage everybody who's interested in thinking about a great way to communicate sustainability or think about it from a business context to pick up that issue. It's available free online for reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Hamish. That's great tips and great information for everyone that need those marketing tools for their sustainability initiatives. Thank you. Next, we have Gabriel. Gabriel Nickdell is the co-founder of ZeroTrek. Their mission is to empower companies to combat climate change and take concrete steps towards positively impacting future generations. They are a leading sustainability guide for companies that help businesses navigate the zero carbon economy. Gabriel, it's up to you now.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Gabriel. I'm a co-founder of ZeroTrek. ZeroTrek is in ZeroTrek, we help businesses to become more sustainable. We help businesses to integrate ESG reporting and carbon footprint management into their operations. In today's topic, I'm going to be talking about carbon emissions in business activities. The purpose of this presentation is to help you understand the brief introduction of carbon emissions, and hopefully this will help you in your future carbon footprint endeavors. Based on GHG protocol, carbon emissions are divided into 3 different scopes: Scope 1, 2, 3. Scope 1 emissions are direct GHG emissions from operations that are owned or controlled by your company. Scope 2 emissions are indirect GHG emissions associated with the purchase of electricity, steam, heat, or cooling. And Scope 3 emissions refer to indirect emissions that occur in an organization's upstream and downstream activities. Now, just give you a little bit more detail about the Scope 1. Scope 1 has 2 different categories: stationary combustion and mobile combustion. In stationary combustion, the emission that is released from the direct burning of fossil fuels to power heat sources or stationary combustion engines, such as boilers and furnaces. The mobile combustion is, you should be thinking about if your company owns or operates any kind of vehicles. For instance, if you have a passenger car, if you have light duty truck, you have heavy duty truck, you have ships and boats in your organization, or you might have agriculture vehicles. Any kind of machinery that they burn fossil fuels, those are considered as your mobile combustion. And if you really want to know what's the emission factor of these machineries, you should be thinking about the year, the model, the engine capacity, the fuel type, the operator's habit. So all these details can alter the carbon emissions in your machineries. We mentioned Scope 2. So Scope 2 is mostly related to, especially in Canada and BC, related to purchase of electricity. Now, in BC, the majority of electricity is produced by BC Hydro, which over 98% of BC Hydro generates from clean and renewable sources. And the big chunk of this power is through hydroelectric facilities, along with a small portion from other clean sources like wind, solar, and biomass. So in BC, the emission factor of electricity is much lower than other provinces or states in United States that they have a higher emission factor. Let's say in Alberta, the emission factor of electricity is much higher. There are tons of tips out there to really understand how you can reduce or make it more efficient when it comes to your electricity. But think about different tips such as high rating appliances, switching to LED lights, optimized data centers, and smart thermostats. Again, these are just quick tips. It really depends what your business, how your business operates and what your business type is. And then we go to Scope 3. So Scope 3 right now for corporations, big companies, it's very complicated to reduce, to measure, and to monitor Scope 3. So basically, these emissions are not produced by the company itself, but rather by customers using the company's products or suppliers making products for the company. In Scope 3, there are 15 categories that those categories make it really hard to track and monitor. So when it comes to Scope 3, you need to have a strategic approach for your Scope 3. Some of these strategic approaches are sustainable procurement practices, travel and transportation emission reduction strategies, implementing energy efficiency measures, educating your employee and make them engage in your sustainability journey, and reporting and monitoring progress. And lastly, collaborative initiative with supply chain partners. So again, these are just the tips. You really need to understand how your business operates and what you do. When it comes to carbon footprint reduction, it's really important to know what your goals are in future, but equally important, you need to know where you're at today and how your business operates, where the opportunities are, so you can reduce your carbon footprint. That was it for me. Again, if you check ZeroTrek.ca, our basic plan, which is free for everyone, you can go there and you can go through the assessments, and we can give you your carbon footprint, and we'll tell you your scope 1, 2, 3, your opportunities, tips, and how you can reduce your carbon footprint in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gabriel.
No problem.
And now, last but not least, we have Diana Ambrose. Diana is the Communication Director of Salish Elements. Salish Elements is an Indigenous majority-owned company that partners with Indigenous communities to develop green hydrogen projects and respect tradition and nature while bringing fair, equitable economic growth. Diana, that goes to you.
Thanks, Ayla, so much. And let me just share this. And thanks for having Salish Elements here and me. Really appreciate the opportunity. I don't normally do this speaking. Everyone can see my screen, I think, now.
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, perfect. Okay, thank you. So yes, my name is Diana Ambrose, and I'm the Communications Director for Salish Elements. I actually came into the company just as a friend of the CEO, Omar, so I guess I'll move this in. We're a really young company, just within the last year. We're a startup. Like you said before, 51% Indigenous owned by Ruben George, who is the other co-founder of Salish Elements. I guess I'll give a brief little story about it. I met Omar, and I had quit my job actually, and he told me all about this awesome idea he had to produce green hydrogen with Indigenous communities to create economic sovereignty. And he was bringing these like really big ideas to life to me that I'd only kind of heard about before. And I'd been searching for something different to be a part of. Then it was living off my savings actually at the time, just trying to figure out, what could really be meaningful. And so when he told me this, I was like, yes, this sounds awesome. I would love to be a part of this. And it started just with a deck. He had a presentation he showed me, and I was like, oh, is this your presentation? I think, let me help you out a little bit. And so just since then, that relationship has evolved over time. And that's how I'm sitting here today, talking to you as the communications director. But really, it started with Ruben and Omar initially, right? Ruben, he is the manager of Sacred Trust for Tsleil-Waututh Nation. And for the last decade, they've been resisting the expansion of the TMX pipeline into the Burnaby Inlet. And he and Omar met, Omar being a professional engineer from Egypt, and he'd worked in the energy industry for about 8 years. He was kind of frustrated with the slow change. He kind of, they're large organizations, and the main product they have is oil and gas, right? So he was really wanting to go do something entrepreneurial with this and more values driven. So when he met Ruben, it all just kind of came together, the perfect storm. And as opposed to resisting the pipeline and resisting oil and gas, Ruben thought it would be a good idea. Maybe we could be part of a bigger solution, an alternative, which would be green hydrogen in BC, owned and operated by Indigenous communities. And then we also, of course, these are some more recent joiners. So we have James Delorme, our VP of Community Development, who's former Chief of Cahoose First Nation, and Rory North, who's our Director of Business Development and our first investor. So we really love Rory. He's keeping us keeping us going. So, like I said, our focus is mostly from a values-driven standpoint. And as Ruben will say often, they're taking care of their lands, their waters, and their peoples. That's something that if you ever hear him speak, he'll speak on quite often. And it always comes back to those main points. So we believe in an Indigenous community sovereignty and our human connection to the natural world and everything that we do, from the core of our business and all of our projects. Through this, we're developing a green hydrogen economy and we want to address the climate. So that would be the carbon issue, right, with all the emissions from the oil and gas industry. Economic benefit to the people, and in this case, we want economic benefit for all people, obviously, but especially Indigenous communities who have been traditionally left out of decisions about major projects going on in their lands. We believe they should be key stakeholders in these projects for infrastructure, and also for the environment, because the process to create green hydrogen has very minimal impact in comparison to other forms of fuel creation. So moving into our values, these are taken from Coast Salish Longhouse Law, mostly informed by our co-founder, Ruben, who's also our chairman. So these are truth, family, health, and culture. All of these need to be very seriously considered in the development of any project that we would ever be a part of or do. So we always want to make sure we're being truthful with the impacts of everything, that people's families are considered, their health of their community, their environment, and their own individual selves, and their culture. No project should ever influence or alter anyone's ability to practice their culture, which that might include, for example, salmon fishing in the fall, early fall and late summer, right? Things that maybe we don't consider as culture collectively, but we want to make sure that all of that is protected when we go forth with project development. This is just an example of how a supply chain might work for us when we do hydrogen, and it's pretty similar to how other companies would want to also produce green hydrogen. So we would have a renewable energy source and water, then compress the hydrogen, distribute it. We have here marine and rail as well as trucking. We're really focused on local, BC, starting with BC, maybe expanding out through Canada as we grow. But for now, we're sticking to the transportation industry in BC. So trucking, distribution for the most part. And then the end use case being hydrogen fueling stations and as hydrogen community power or even industrial power. Our development approach, we really are just trying to unite everyone together to get this thing going. That's kind of the main issue that we find when we're trying to produce hydrogen in anywhere, is how you need the people to buy the hydrogen, the people to produce the hydrogen, the people to distribute the hydrogen. And that's actually the problem. Like, the technology is pretty advanced, like it's ready to go. And now it's just kind of commercializing it, making it affordable enough for people to actually buy into that industry, right? And be part of it all together. So getting all of that lined up at the same time while oil and gas is still quite cheap is really challenging. And we see it helps actually when we look at electricity, for example. Electrification, while it's a competitor, is also helpful because it's all of this just helps transition us closer and closer to the goal of getting off of oil and gas. So we're trying to unite provincial and federal governments, the green technology providers, and the professionals, so engineers, people who really know their stuff in the industry, investors who really believe in what we're doing, especially in regard to community sovereignty and our duty to the environment, the customer base, educational institutions. We partner with SFU right now for a trucking pilot, which is really exciting. And of course, the First Nations and Indigenous communities. So bringing all of those people together in order to hopefully create a green hydrogen economy. As I said before, we're looking locally. We really want to create a really good use case for a local argument for hydrogen that people can look at and say, wow, that's Canada, like that's what we're doing over here. Versus it's a very popular idea to export the hydrogen to other markets that are more available in Europe. But we really believe there's a case here to revolutionize the transportation industry that we have right here at home. So like I said, that would be heavy duty transportation in BC and Canada. And then also ports and airports, like they have a lot of machinery and different things that can use hydrogen. And also remote community power. There are many First Nations in BC that are all running on really dirty diesel, and potentially it would be a very easy solution for them to just switch to a hydrogen generator and be able to have the hydrogen transported that way, or even produce it in some cases. And these are just some market trends. This is my CEO's PowerPoint, actually. So we I don't usually focus too much on this stuff, but this is just an argument showing that the capacity for hydrogen is growing over time. So a lot of people are like, oh, we keep hearing about hydrogen since the 90s or early 2000s. How can this be real? It's just another hype train kind of thing. But we really believe we're at the point now where the policy is kind of supporting more of this. So we're looking at how the government is responding to the climate crisis through like tax incentives, through penalties for having emitting vehicles still in use. And so this is this proposed annual sales targets for zero emission heavy duty vehicles. You can see that they're expecting by 2030 for 30% of those sales to be zero emission vehicles. And we believe that a large proportion of those should be hydrogen. So we're hoping to launch in 2026. We'll see how far we get. These are ambitious targets, we know, but we believe we can do it with the right partners to come along. It's really a funding kind of question, right? Once you have the money and people, you can kind of just go. We have our first partner. We have an announcement coming up very soon, actually, that we're excited about to do our first hydrogen initial production. And that will really bring us to the point of having the first initial production and then bringing it to our first fueling station. And from there, having a closed loop cycle going. And in that way, we can actually show that this is working, right? And then the idea is to attract more people to come along as they see this thing actually moving along. And this is an example of what that map might look like. You probably have seen examples of this before, but yes, so our first production would be near Lillooet, BC, and we're really excited about it. And if you can't tell already, our desire is to be a vertically integrated company, right? So we want to start from the very beginning, from the resources, the water, the land, the power, the people, and the conscious customers at the very end of that supply chain. So in between all that is the engineering and development to get it going, hydrogen production and manufacturing, the fueling stations and distribution to bring the hydrogen to everyone that needs it, and those end-use solutions like trucks and generators, bringing those to people. We might not necessarily manufacture those things, but being part of the research and development and making sure we're bringing those solutions to our customers as a development company. All for a price lower than diesel is what we hope in the future. And that's about it. If you want to visit our website, we actually just had a new one launched, so let me know if you see any bugs. But we are super excited to get going, and send me an email if you have any questions. And and I can hook you up with Omar, who will probably have more detailed information should you want to know more. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. It was very informative and exciting to see that starting. So thank you, everyone. I would like to invite everyone that's on the call to put your questions in the Q&A section, and we'll have a few minutes to answer those. In the meantime, Ben had to leave early, but we have the four of you, so thank you for staying on the call. And I noticed that all of you mentioned, or there's some kind of a connection to the community in your business, and some of them said like there's other community partners coming along, or we want to have more community to get this business going. And I was hoping to get more information from you on like a success story or a partnership that you had with the organization from the community. Anyone wants to start? Leah, maybe you? Just a success story about, one of your partnerships.
Yeah, so many. I'm actually having trouble just picking one. Gosh, so we partner with, it must be almost a couple of hundred food charities at this point. Food charities, nonprofits, social enterprises. and also a couple of hundred farmers as well. So I'm just trying to drill down to one good example. We partner with City Reach, which is a food charity which is located in sort of East Van area next to the Broadway City Church. We have actually kind of on the side sort of to what we do, we've organized a volunteering program as well. So while we work with retailers, we've actually had people working for the retailers go and actually visit this charity to volunteer themselves and to see how the food is actually used. So the food that they're donating to the charity, they're then going and seeing in the warehouse how hampers are made, how the food is sorted, and then how it's given out to clients, to people in need. So that's just one example of many where we really appreciate that partnership, and we feel that with their partnership we've been able to make just a good difference to people's lives, but also just, I guess, raising the awareness as well with our customers so that they feel more involved and engaged with the cause.
Thank you. Yeah, that's wonderful. Hamish?
Yeah, thank you.
I know you guys are very much invested in the community and working together to help the cause of fighting climate action. And I'll talk later about our partnership.
Yeah. So, a really great thing. So an interesting thing is a lot of the conversations are happening in silos, or people are kind of very much in their, in their focus lane. And we happen to cross a number of different rooms and sustainability conversations, and especially through the lens of the magazine. So, for example, like FoodMesh was one of the organizations that we had worked with and featured in an earlier issue. I think it's issue number 2. So, we have these opportunities to spot these really promising stories and to put a spotlight on them. Essentially before they may have gotten as famous as we hope we want them to be, but we're Sparx, so we like to look for the small stories that are starting to make big changes. But one of the opportunities that affords us is actually through one of our partners. So we are the marketing agency for a large stock exchange here in Canada. Canada's second largest stock exchange is the Canadian Securities Exchange. And we helped put together the programming in collaboration with them. We run all their content marketing, but because we're such strong advocates for sustainability, we were able to internally shift some of the programming and get stage time for a series of entrepreneurs and small businesses here in the Lower Mainland who are able to participate in a conference on sustainable investment that we held in Kelowna in partnership with the Canadian Securities Exchange. So we had seaweed manufacturer Cascadia Seaweed. We had a circular economy company, Circular Rubber Technologies, headquartered here in BC. They got their first plant in Alberta going just recently. We had an Indigenous-led investor organization, and we had Foresight bring in a voice on mining. So these are, and they're on stage in a room that would not have ordinarily had the opportunity to hear about these entrepreneurs. And this is sort of the capital markets, Bay Street, very big sort of money conversations that were happening. And they got a chance to tell their story and, provide exposure. There is a shout out. We gave stage time to Sustainable, who made the trek out to Kelowna, and Mark, and I don't know if anybody has heard of Sustainable, but if you're on LinkedIn, you cannot avoid Mark's Sustainable posts, which are awesome to see because it's just great to see the work in motion and the entrepreneurial drive that is needed to really lift a brand from zero into general adoption and awareness. So we've had the opportunity through our magazine to reach a lot of different stories and then to actually bring that into the real world, which has been incredibly fascinating to see people who are looking to put capital to work towards more beneficial means or towards a greater impact, to put those folks in the same room together. And it just so happens that we, did this through the magazine. So it's been a vehicle for us from a marketing standpoint, but just clearly to be able to connect these different conversations, which typically happen in very, narrow lanes, and bring those folks together. So it's not something that we engineered on purpose, but it just happens to be like, when you're trying to find solutions to this very, multi-threaded problem, it just happens to fit with what marketing does really well, and being able to communicate and bring people together in that front. So from the community aspect, what's really nice is that, the interesting thing is the level of collaborative energy that happens to be here in these kinds of spaces is so much higher than what we see. So I think that's a really great tailwind. If you're interested in doing something good or making a positive difference, there's a huge number of people. When we first started, I was like, who else is going to be doing this? I'm very relieved that there are lots of people out here who are also doing it. And then we have the opportunity to meet and work with them.
That's great. Yeah. And I think, many companies, no matter how big they are not really sure where to start and where, to find an opportunity to engage in those areas. So that was great that you guys made that connection with everyone and providing that. Gabriel, can you relate? Do you have any story to tell us about ZeroTrek?
Sure, yeah. So when we started, ZeroTrek is a startup. We started the idea around last year, and we've been operational for the last 6 months or so. When we started, we partnered up with the Coastal First Nation, that they have the Great Bear Rainforest Carbon Offset Project. And this aligned with our values, that we wanted to stay local. We wanted to use local resources that they're out there. So we, right now, our clients, they have the opportunity to offset their carbon footprint by purchasing the credits from this project, which is one of the largest rainforest intact forest management project here in BC, in Haida Gwaii, which all the benefits go to Indigenous people over there, and it helps their operation, their logging management, the ocean, and everything. So for us, it's a great partnership. It aligns with our values, and we are excited to offer these credits to our clients.
Perfect. Diana, I know you talked a little bit. I know you're still in the early stages, but you did talk on one of your slides about the cooperative effort of making that possible with impact on different organizations and sectors. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think our most established partnership would be with SFU. That's outside of like a traditional business kind of, that's the normal partnership. But with SFU, we're doing a research project with them, and we have a postgraduate student who now is working with us it's like a trucking pilot, basically, to do some research and development on a heavy 64-ton hydrogen truck. So we're really excited about that. We went in on an application together to fund this research. And I think that process and just the continuing relationship with SFU has been really nice. And then additionally, when we're reaching out with Indigenous communities, that's a whole other form of community that most of us probably haven't been exposed to, and due to the family ties, right? So many of us live in places where, I know I do, I'm new to BC personally. I've only lived here 2.5 years. And my family is pretty far distributed. And I think that happens to a lot of us, right? You might know your immediate cousins or something like that, but it's not that kind of same relationship with the land and the people over many generations. And that is just a very different kind of community to work with. And I'm not an expert by any means. I'm learning every day working for this company and with Ruben. And so I think what's the most important when we come into community and we work together is just being really able to listen to them and understand, try and understand as best we can what people's needs, concerns, and how they want to live, right? And if you don't want to come in somewhere where you're not wanted, basically, or something like that, right? Not everyone's going to want a green hydrogen production facility or distribution, like refueling station. And some people are going to be all about it. And some individuals and communities might want it, and some individuals might not. And so they require a lot more collective buy-in sometimes. But it just depends on how each one is run as well. And then government partnerships as well. I know we have a few offices that support what we're doing, and we have some grants out and applications we go through, and people are always just like really supportive of what we're trying to do. And I would say like most of what we get is a lot of like free consulting, where people are giving us that insight and that input. That way we can grow and come about in a really good way. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Yes.
We have actually a question for you, Diana, in the Q&A. So in parallel with hydrogen fuel trucks, there is also a huge surge of electric trucks. I'm curious, how do you see your business model and the development of electric players?
Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if this is in terms of like a competitor. I guess I'll answer it that way, because I think a lot of people see hydrogen and electric vehicles as some kind of like, oh, it's got to be one or the other kind of thing. And we don't believe that at all. There's always use cases where electric is going to make more sense, or where hydrogen might make more sense. And so for us, we would say that, well, in those use cases, the electric people will do their thing and the hydrogen people would do their thing. There's also an argument to be made about mineral rights, and there's something a little more serious that's been coming across, especially in Indigenous communities, about having access to their mineral rights and what that's going to look like with the increased battery production. So in an effort to create more sustainable products that could be electrified, we might actually be infringing even more on people's lands and their rights and their waters and creating toxic materials. And so just I think with hydrogen, especially with certain electrolyzers that you can find, they don't require as many or at all those kinds of harsh metals. And so we see it as a more sustainable solution. We could get into it more, and also Omar would have more information about our business model. But so I would definitely encourage you to send me an email, and then I can kind of connect you to him if you have a deeper question. But
perfect, and we'll share all the information, the contact information of the panelists to all the attendees, so they can contact you directly and ask more questions if they have. So before we finish this session for today, I'm wondering if you guys can give us like a minute of, if a business wants to contact you and start a process, what would they do? What will be the best way? Is it like, do you see yourself as a service to a certain size of companies, or can everyone benefit from the services? I wanted to start with Clea again, just because you were mentioning that you deal with restaurants and other places they have obviously food waste. But can it be hotels? Can it be, I'm just thinking about our members, can it be like a small cafe, or just give us a little brief.
Yeah, absolutely. Any sort of food business that has any surplus food. So if they've got surplus food on more of an ad hoc basis and larger quantities, they may be a good fit for our online marketplace. Whereas if they are, say, a retailer, like a grocery chain, and they've got surplus food on a more regular basis, where they would need that to be dealt with on a scheduled, regular schedule, then they would be more suited to our managed services, our retail food recovery program, it's called. So really, if there are any food businesses out there, there's some surplus food, whether that's on an ad hoc basis or whether that's regular supply. Easiest thing to do is just to reach out to us, and we can determine what the best path forward is. Yeah.
Perfect. Gabriel?
Yes. So one of our goal is to help smaller size businesses, medium-sized, smaller size businesses to become more sustainable. So for us, it can be any industry as long as you want to become more sustainable. If you're a small cafe, like you mentioned, or you're a manufacturing company, you can, in any industry, we can help you out. And we can help you with your marketing packages. We have annual impact reports. There are different areas with your carbon footprint management. There are different areas we can help you out. You can go to our website, you can request a demo. We can walk you through our platform and step by step show you how we can help you out. Our approach is to, again, make it easy. If in your company you don't have a sustainability expert, or you don't want to have a separate department because it's costly, you need experts, you need to hire people. So we can help you out with that. You can outsource your basically sustainability department. And yeah, reach out to me. You can email me. You can send me a message on LinkedIn, or you can go to our website and request a demo. We'll walk you through. We'll show you how we can help you out with your sustainability journey.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Diana, I know that in your case it's a little bit different, but you did mention that you're targeting more of hydrogen for trucks and industrial. But is there a specific, specific sector that you're targeting with your product?
Yeah, so I guess the transportation industry in general. So there's definitely people, I don't know if they're watching this presentation right now, but, trucking companies, people who are looking to, if they have some kind of heavy machinery they want to alter, or maybe there's a product out there that will be more sustainable and could run on hydrogen if they're interested in that. Having green hydrogen as a source, so that would be someone who might want to transition into a hydrogen product. We could talk about that with them, I suppose. We definitely are interested in creating those end-use solutions in the Vancouver area as we come about. But right now we're more focused on getting that initial production cemented, as this is the whole issue, right? Is without having the production, no one's going to want to buy the product, because it's like, well, I can't power it. So it has to be like a reliable fuel supply before we can really get to the point where people are willing to buy products to, fuel with hydrogen. So, but yeah, having that kind of happening, that dance together, like the development of the customer base and the production. I would definitely encourage municipalities and people who are seeking those solutions to consider hydrogen and just look what products are out there potentially. And there is a conference coming up, actually. HiFCell, it's a hydrogen conference. So if you wanted to check out the technology, it's in June. Check it out.
Thank you. Hamish?
Thank you very much. I think the short answer is we would love to amplify success stories and sustainability stories. So if that's something that companies are working on, then we would certainly love to work with them on helping them with that. That's a big marketing lift. Something more concrete, shouldn't probably use concrete because I have to check my analogies every time. There's like fireside chats sometimes people say, and I'm like, why can't we use like fernside chats? But anyways, something more tangible. If B2B folks are looking to attend conferences and trying to get greater uptake and visibility of what they're doing, especially if they're sustainability first or more sustainability-minded organizations, we would love to work on those kinds of projects as well. Yeah, you can certainly reach out to us for a wide variety of marketing support needs, but where we hope to accelerate against our mission and our company purpose is really to help amplify those stories and products and services that will ultimately make a big dent in the well-being for all. So that's what we would love to reach out and talk to.
That's great. Well, that brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate your time.